Yo, what's up, world? This is Dane Tomas, and you're listening to the Dane Tomas podcast. Every week, I talk to experts, weirdos, new friends, and old ones about everything from magic to business to creativity and human awakening. So, strap yourself in, lay back and relax, cause we're heading straight for the black hole. Hi, ladies.
Hello. Hi, Dane.
What's up, world? I want to introduce you to a little magical triangle that we've been lovingly referring to as Satan's horse. I think it's hilarious that I have named that publicly.
I had it as Satan's homeboys, and then you changed it, which has made it so much worse. The innocence of the homeboys of Satan.
Yeah, homeboys. It's so like sexually sterile. It's like, what do we just wear backward hats? You know, like, yeah, what up, man? Yeah, it was more exciting, you know.
More accurate, is that what you're saying?
I didn't even notice
definitely
the
more accurate.
Actually,
yeah. It was smooth.
No, it was really smooth.
So for those of you tuning in, wherever you might be, I just want to introduce Victoria Redbard and Sigourney Belle, two women that I know and love dearly and that have journeyed with in parallel for quite a while in the realms of spirituality, sexuality, and business. And the reason I got these two on together is there's something we all have in common. And you know, Victoria, really what you're known for currently is the New Paradigm Institute of Intimacy. But what seems to be coming through bigger is you really redefining the sexuality industry. Is that how you would put it?
Yeah, definitely. I've been playing with those words. Is it the sex industry? Is it the sex work industry? Yeah. I think sexuality industry is, and and also moving away from like calling it the sacred sexuality industry or anything like that. It's just actually like, this is the sexuality industry. Yeah. And how do we all move inside of that? And it's kind of like the piece around not about escapism, but actually taking the journey through sexuality for self-development, for business development, all the pieces.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I'm loving watching that happen. And Sigourney, you're probably, I don't know this could be in the future. You could be famous for something else by now, but you're probably most well known for Wild Grace, your book Leviathan with the wonky N in the middle of the title that nobody understands.
I'm actually taking that out.
No way.
Yeah. I'm getting the cover redesigned at the moment. I just submitted it last night.
Wow.
There's too many confused people.
I thought that was your game with that.
It was.
But what I want to throw your way before we get into some crazy diversion is that Sig, you know, what I'm seeing with you with Dark Empire and all the other pieces is you're really moving into redefining business. Like it's quite a big piece there. And there's this thing, you know, why I wanted us together and what was striking me a few weeks ago before we met up and spent some time together was really this theme around we're not really shying away from the material world, from the more conventional world, from money, from the industry level of stuff. And I think that's what I thought was interesting about the three of us is there's definitely a strong spiritual aspect going on, but all of us are like, fuck it, let's make money. Let's kind of disrupt existing industries, but also on some levels be professional enough to actually penetrate those industries and change them, which I think is it seems to be rare in the more spiritual communities. It's kind of like we're going to do our thing over here, and eventually the power of that will kind of feed back into the mainstream world. But in different ways, each of us is kind of wanting to take transformation to the existing worlds. And I think, you know, I was kind of feeling into today, like what's the point of this triangle? What have we got in common? And so maybe I'll just open up with a question, and I just want to kind of throw it out there, like, why do you think so many quote unquote spiritual people struggle to have an impact in the material realm?
Alignment. I think that's my favorite buzzword of people that don't want to do the thing. Is it's like when it gets a little bit uncomfortable, it's like, it's out of alignment. The other thing that I really notice actually is around my industry with the sexuality piece is you know, this kind of concept with Tantra and the pathway of like sexual mastery is all about like obtaining hedonism. And that quite triggers me a lot, actually. I feel like, you know, what I'm wanting to connect to is just like being okay with like discomfort, comfort, pleasure, pain. And that like, it's almost like the bliss body holds that peace when you work in that way. It's just like, I don't actually feel this. I don't feel disconnected from myself when I'm in my own discomfort. You know what I mean? It's almost like I'm more connected to like the truth of life. And I feel like that is actually the path of sexual mastery in Tantra.
Right. And are you saying that you see a lot of people who they're kind of wanting to unrealistically live in like a bliss state 24/7 or something, or?
Yeah, just the chasing, like, and when discomfort comes up on the pathway, which it will when you do anything in the entrepreneur world, it's just like, it's the first thing is like, it's out of alignment. And also like a lot of, oh, you know, it's too masculine. There's a lot of that conversation, and it's just like, you know, that invitation to come into what is the polarity you're playing out. And I really, the way that I like to work with sexuality is like, how do we drop it down beyond the polarities and into like, actually, how do we connect and just keep meeting the moment as it is, rather than like going, oh, well, that's too much of that and that's too much of that. It's like, actually, this is coming to you. Can you just meet this in this moment and find your center within inside of that? You know, this is what this whole, you know, like bridging these worlds is about, is becoming for me. It's just like, we do not have to change for these worlds, but we do have to vibrate up against them. And I one of the things I speak to in sexuality is we're not here to like penetrate, you know, sexuality into the mainstream. We just need to vibrate so loudly and be so in our essence and so connected to our vibrancy that it cannot be ignored. And I feel like that's what I'm really desiring for people to create.
Love it.
Yeah, and I feel like just building on that was awesome. It's like, you know, for so long there has been such deep suppression of the feminine, if we want to call it that way, and the more organic way of being and like the state of feeling, and that we've almost had to polarize in the opposite direction. And a lot of spirituality is based upon these more like feminine ways of being, and actually then there's a lot of shaming of like more of the masculine way of being, but we haven't found that intersection, that interpoint of like the healthy balance. And I feel like that's what we're kind of doing, is coming back and bringing more of a masculine standpoint and a healthy masculine standpoint back in. And that, you know, one of the biggest initiations into that for me is being business, of integrating those two parts of myself. So yeah, it's like almost swung, you know, one way, and we're kind of seeing it come back into balance more. So
yeah. I remember I reached out to you a while ago, Dane, and I was like, you know, I feel like maybe there's too much, like I'm being accused of being too much of my masculine on this. And you were just like, actually, you know, with little people on the internet talking about how, you know, the new business leadership is around the feminine, and you were like, actually, it needs to be more integrated, the masculine and the feminine.
Totally. Yeah, it's like
that piece.
When I see these pieces like the future is female, I'm like, yeah, we're going to create a matriarchy. I'm like, cool. So your problem was that only half of humanity showed up, and your solution is let's switch to now only the other half. It's like, that's, you know, I've been trying to stand on one leg for my whole life. I'm going to stand on the other one. It's like, that's going to be equally limiting. And I understand there's this, what do you call it? Like there's a fun newness to standing on your left leg for the first time in your life if you've been stood on your right leg for 10 years, but you're going to need both legs to walk, you know? And I think for me, I was like, why is everyone saying that business is masculine or feminine? It's fucking not. Like, you know, is sending an email, is that masculine or feminine? It's not. It's just fucking admin, you know? And so much of business is neutral. And it's more that like we as people, if we want to use those categories, have a whole fucking galaxy within us, and to be able to access the entirety of that galaxy to me just seems obvious. But yeah, it seems like what I was hearing from the beginning, Vic, is this kind of piece around we in these communities are very content to use our new dogmas to kind of like, you know, support us to stay in our comfort zones. Like, I don't want to do that. It's not in flow, or, well, that seems very masculine to me. And it's like, and it's interesting, like both of you guys, you get shit done. You know, I'm like, whoa, just build all that like since 3 months ago. Like, what the hell's going on? So do you put that down to like masculine, or what? How do you want to break that down? Like, why are you getting so much shit done, Sigourney Belle? What is happening?
I mean, it's quite interesting because I feel like when I'm in a state of getting shit done, it's like there's I'm not thinking about like whether I'm in my masculine or my feminine. I'm just so deeply passionate about what it is that I'm doing that I'm just doing it, you know. But there is a willing, like on my part, you know, there is like like I desire to see, like my vision is so big that I know that I'm going to have to hold a level of discomfort and containment in order to actually show up and like basically manifest that vision. And I'm totally okay with containment, and I'm totally okay with discomfort. I always have been. There's always been this like part of me that's like deeply disciplined, and like also like the level of freedom that comes from actually like disciplining myself and showing up for something over time and then seeing that actually tangibly like manifest itself is like so much more powerful than the freedom that comes from like you were saying before, like more hedonistic pleasures for me, that I would rather be in that discomfort and show up for something that I know is going to give me a deeper form of satisfaction.
It's funny, like even if you want to follow the pleasure path, like full out, at some point you're gonna have three lovers and you're gonna be in an orgasmic soup of like oneness and whatever. You're gonna have to hit some edges and some challenges and like stretch. You know, it's like even if you commit to like, I'm gonna be like a pleasure person and I'll follow that, it's like, cool, that's gonna test you just as much as like I'm gonna be super rich. You know, it's like, okay, that's a beautiful path. You're going to hit these like upper limits at some point of like, I'm relating with three people and I don't know if I'm broken to pieces and I either have to stop doing this or I have to expand. Right. Like, so it's funny that, we, even as humans, we have an idea that there's a path that's going to be like effortless.
I'm just smiling, thinking if you were to ask me that question of how do I build things out so fast, I'm like, definitely the open relating. Definitely the ability to hold those and weave those pieces and, you know, be a team with so many people. It's just like, that is actually how things move for me very, very quickly, because I feel like I hold that piece of like, oh, I actually feel very comfortable relating to a lot of people, and it kind of moves in that way for me. So it's interesting.
Well, I had an epic chat with Kamala Devi about this like last podcast before this one, and we got into, you know, how has being like polyamorous for the last however long made you better at business. And it was just like this, like, my ability to finesse human relationships and keep connections open and manage all this different interactions and stuff. What do you think open relating has given you that is useful outside of having a bunch of lovers?
Well, obviously orgasms definitely get you into flow state a lot quicker, so there's that piece. But I think that very similar to what Sigourney's saying, it's just like that ability to hold discomfort. Like it's almost like it doesn't even feel like discomfort anymore, you know, like, you know, human awkwardness and the ability for like tension to be in conversations, and for that just to not even feel like tension, is a lot of what I feel like has happened from the open relating space. It's like, it's so often that you will be in a scenario with, you know, more than one of your lovers, and then you know, maybe they don't get on, and maybe that's actually okay too, you know. And that, you know, I've seen that inside of the team. It's like, there's not this, you know, I'm not building a team or building, you know, this organization from a place of like, things need to look like happy families and things need to be a certain way. And I've also started to, one of the things that I got is like, you know, so many of the lovers that I've had in the past have showed up in so many beautiful different ways in my life. And I often see when people build teams, it's like they've got like a whole team of one archetype, you know? Yeah. And I feel like one of the best things about my organization is just the variety of the kind of people in there. And I've seen how that's actually triggered a lot of people in my organization, because they're just like, that person's not in their body, or that person's, you know, too in their head, you know, and all this conversations. I'm just like, yeah, I love that. That is so epic. Like, you know, cheer them on, like, and notice what comes up in you as we step towards, you know, this goal that we're all creating together.
Big newsflash, Tantra people, like your accountant doesn't need to be more embodied than you, you know, they just need to be better at like numbers and fucking filing taxes and shit like that. And yeah.
That's so funny, because I
actually pretty embodied. But
say that again, Sigourney.
I said, it's just so funny because I totally have an archetype. Like I made a joke once. I was like, I'm not having anyone in my business, in my direct team, that doesn't have at least 4 planets in Capricorn, because you need to be able to show up and get shit done. And literally we all do. I have the least amount, and I have a stellium, and then there's 5 and 6. 4, 4, 5, 6 in Capricorn, and we're all like, you know, we're like all like, it's actually harder for us to not work. We're like, we actually need to keep each other accountable to not working, and it's perfect for me because like I love working, right? Like it's like, and I love business so much that my challenge is actually taking time off. So I totally have an archetype in business.
I feel like I'd be the one crying at your team meetings, you know, like counterbalance. I'm like, all my water is really activated right now. What's happening? It's like, I have so many feelings right now. And everyone's just like, shut up. We have a mountain to climb.
Yeah.
Just like goats. Random question. Don't know why I would ask this right now. Where do you think trauma fits into all this? Just to throw like a frozen turd into the middle of the arena, you know, it's just like, it's a thing, right? We all know it's a thing. We all have a relative degree of trauma-informed stuff going on in the work that we do. How do you think that shows up around business and money?
I can actually speak a bit to this. It's something I've been thinking about this week, actually. You know, a lot of people ask me why I was launching butt plugs for business. And, you know, we just put out a butt plug this week, and I've been talking a little bit about why that is, how that fits into the business world. And I have this experience of like, when I have been in burnout or I've been working through kind of like trauma pieces for myself, and I've been overriding my decisions from that place of like acting from fear inside of my business, I just got how much, like, it was just like an ongoing effect, you know, like it's just like, then all my decisions come from fear, and all of it comes from scarcity. And then I just started looking about like how much, you know, that just is in the entrepreneur world anyway, because every day we are faced with like a bunch of problems and a bunch of things that feel like quite high risk compared to, you know, your average 9-to-5 jobs. And so, you know, kind of what Sigourney was saying is like, you just kind of do the do. But I feel the place that we're doing it from is actually this, like, it's actually being with the body. It's like, and that's really kind of how it kind of weaves into the self-pleasure, the butt plug piece is like, when we have that relationship with the unknown, it's actually much easier to get into flow state. And that's really what the butt plug has really like brought into my business practice, has been like, oh, actually, when I go into like anal play things, it's like, you don't know what's on the other side of that. You're like entering into this unknown place that is like completely, you know, you have to surrender. Like, you cannot force a butt plug into you. You cannot force your business to happen. So it's like you're free falling into this experience with it. And you know, that's kind of how I have started to like weave my self-pleasure pieces with my business too, because it's like, you know, self-pleasure to me is like allowing the body to meet, like allowing the body to speak to my mind rather than me telling my body what to do. And I feel like if we have business from that place, it's actually going to completely eradicate like driving a business from like, oh yeah, I'll be worthy when I hit this level of success. I'll be, you know, I'll feel happy when I get this amount of money in the bank. And it's just like, we're actually just driving it from this place of like, you know, meeting the moment inside of the body and just making the decision to kind of alchemize with whatever that feeling is going on inside of you. Yeah. And I feel that, you know, that's all woven in the self-pleasure and the sexuality, and the butt plugs is just gives you that very it's almost like it like goes into your cells, rather than actually trying to like stand in the mirror and do affirmations of how you're going to be embodied that day. It's like you're just going straight to the cells that need to hear it.
Well, I actually do my affirmations while doing the anal practice and the self-pleasure, so it's like once
the only way to do it.
Open, it's just like they just go straight in. But it's reminding me, I was at a retreat, a workshop that we all know of, and I'll keep it secret so no one knows where this happened. But we had just done a anal penetration process, and the next morning we're having a little group sharing, and you know, the leader of my group sharing was a very hippie lady, you know, and she's like, so what did you get from the process yesterday? And I was like, I'm gonna make so much fucking money now. And she was like, she was horrified that was my takeaway from like this mystical anal deep internal journey. But what I was unpacking was like, there was a real journey around fear of death, and death being held in, you know, in the anus, like the kind of clenching of the animal kind of in survival. It's really tight. And as this all dropped and I kind of faced this kind of death energy, and we came out of the process with this kind of wild connection, it's like, oh my God, like I'm powerful. I can do anything. I'm not afraid of contraction or fear itself or death or shame. So from that place, well, everything I can be more honest in how I'm loving. I can be more honest in what I say, because I'm not like, will people lynch me if I say something unpopular? And I can be more honest in how I price products, or if I decide I want to make $1 million a year and I'm inhabiting, a biological organism that is relaxed, confident, and feels powerful and sourced on planet Earth, well, what the fuck's going to stop me? Versus before, it's like, yeah, I want all those things, but am I allowed? Or what about if I get kicked out of the tribe? And all these things that I wouldn't consciously know. There's just that deep release from the tissues and this deep softening of the nervous system. So I also, in my business containers, am strongly recommending and prescribing anal de-armoring, regular self-pleasure to get people very quickly into a baseline of abundance, calmness, relaxed nervous system, and also power, I think, is a big piece as well that comes from that journey. Got any anal related things you want to share, Sig?
Probably many, actually. I mean, like, I wear a butt plug when I'm doing computer work.
Like, you do.
Another thing we all have in common.
Like, I'm just sitting here doing my computer work wearing a butt plug, and it keeps me really anchored. But no, I think I just wanted to loop back to your question around, or like your statement around trauma.
Yeah,
it's a bit of a buzzword.
Trauma is so hot right now. It is so hot right now.
It's so hot.
Yeah.
And there's such a fine line between something that is genuine trauma and something that is perpetuating some kind of...
I'm really traumatized by the colors that you used in your branding. It's really traumatizing me. Like, that's... Do continue.
Yeah, like
I just thought I'd throw that in the mix. Please continue. I don't mean to derail you
actually,
completely.
Though?
No. I'm just playing. I'm just sort of giving an example of like how overly sensitive the dialogue around trauma at its worst can be. Like, you can't say that. I'm like, words shouldn't be considered. We shouldn't want to shut people up because they would say a sentence on social media that would be traumatizing. So please continue, though. I don't really want to derail you. I want to hear what you've got to say.
No, it's all right. I'm just tuning into what I want to share around this, actually. I was finding for years, like, I was kind of one of these people that would dip my toes into communities and kind of be sitting on the outskirts, kind of observing the way, like, the ecology of a community. And I, like, moved between so many communities for years and years and years. And I was just kind of observing the patterns of everything that was happening. And it was only recently, like this year, that I kind of like separated myself out, and I'm like, okay, what have been my learnings around all of this? And just something that I observe like quite strongly within these arenas are a lot of people that are just, going into play out trauma disguised as like, or healing work that's actually deeply embedded in fear of like the fear of actually like being in the material world, and the fear of actually like doing what is actually like what they're actually scared of, which often is like anchoring into this physical reality, into this material world, and actioning these tangible things like business, for example. And actually the pathway through like, healing this trauma is actually to show up in aligned action, and that actually naturally starts to shift it, as opposed to actually digging it up and staying in these loop cycles of trauma or healing. And actually the biggest initiation for me has been business. Like one of the deepest spiritual initiations has been business. It's been learning how to hold my energy and how to like actually contain my energy and show up for something that's bigger than myself. So that's been one of the most deeply healing journeys for me, is like actually fully showing up and committing to something every fucking day and choosing it. And it's like, it's not comfortable. It's more uncomfortable than going into these cathartic healing processes. Is to actually hold that level of discomfort in the body. And this is like the dark masculine archetype, right? It's like holding that every day and like showing up for something, even when it's like deeply, deeply, like I just want to run, So yeah, like that Yeah, I just wanted to bring awareness to that, I guess.
Totally. If I was an aho person, I'd be like, aho.
Yeah.
Yeah, I echo all of that. For me, having elements to the businesses that I'm doing that I can't really walk away from. Like, even though I'm fucking bored of this, it's like, yes, but there's something bigger and it's not landed fully yet. It's like, okay, well, I guess I'm in for another year, maybe 2, maybe 10. And it has forced me to live on planet Earth and deal with interpersonal dynamics that a part of me could happily be like an sort of, a little bit on the spectrum, kind of just hang out and read books and be on the internet for like years at a time, and it's like, oh, I've got stuff to do like in the world. It's been so, which has really driven me to work on my landing. And I'd say that's at this point, it's not like me learning another sales strategy is going to take things out of zero. It's just more like the more I land in my body and the more certainty that I move with in uncertainty, the more likely it is that this will be like 5 million or 10 million. Cause it's just like, oh, I can execute in the world. I think that's the learning for me, is this descent journey I wondered at a certain point, oh, if I go through another one of these deaths, am I going to now not care about money or business or doing my thing? And maybe for a week afterwards, 2 weeks, I'd be integrating, and then there'd be this energy. And I'm like, what is that? What is that? And I'm like, oh, it's my ambition, the thing that won't ever die. And it's just like, yeah, you have, and some of it's spiritual and some of it's just personal, and it's just like, oh, got something big, still building that thing that I was, if I was honest, if I was more tuned, I was sniffing around as a 19-year-old. I knew that mission, but I couldn't language or vision. I didn't have any of the tools for it. But yeah, I really echo that business as a spiritual journey has been, for me, it's like money and purpose and love, if you want, they're the 2 big ones. It's like, and creativity, if I want to give it its own category, is probably the other big one. So what do you guys want to talk about?
Kind of liking this theme that we're doing with the new paradigm of business, sex, money. Yeah, I think that's really important to the collective right now, and that kind of bridge. And just kind of, we haven't even really spoke about this, Dane, but what you're sharing is kind of bumping into some things that I'm kind of journeying right now, of like this kind of standard of excellence that I'm like looking to see inside of my own organization, and how the importance of that, I think, for the spiritual community. And where do we want where do we want the future to be? I feel like we've been gifted this amazing opportunity with COVID, to ride a new wave into the world with business, and people are listening to things that they weren't listening to before. And I think something that I've really been journeying on the Gold Coast is around this kind of people doing the lone wolf thing and really pushing the entrepreneur thing into now moving into the state of like, okay, what if we had organizations? What if, you're talking about those people that need to kind of get on the phone and make the money. I'm interested in the people that don't have that entrepreneur piece, but also want to, be part of a mission and be part of a vision. And how do we kind of create that? And I think that there's a beautiful piece that I see with the 3 of us of how we all interweave together, and how we all kind of take care of each other, and how that actually can, like, that for me is something that I really enjoy about the triangle, and how that can ripple out, there's a major crossover of the people that have done the Institute of New Paradigm Intimacy, have also done Well Grace, have also done Spiral, and it's just like, that keeps happening. And I think there's a culture that gets to build when we create that natural order, and that kind of ripples out. So, I kind of just want to hear what you guys think about that too.
Yeah, well, it's funny because it's kind of a ricochet off in another direction. But I remember when we all hung out and we were having our little drop-in circle, and I said, like, there's some people out there in the world that if they knew us 3 were sitting together with like candles lit and holding hands and like unifying forces, they would hate that. And, I would love to unpack that a little with you guys. But what I want to say first is, on the one hand, we're all very individualistic and can trigger people with mission and whatever other energies, and And then on the other hand, what I'm seeing as this trust builds, and I see this with other people that I think of as leaders, there's a massive generosity of time, of networks, of skill set, of knowledge, of energy that, you know, like I used to get this thing of like, he's like the wolf of Wall Street. He just wants to take people's money. And I'm like, oh, like I spend half of my life giving my friends the hookups and connections that I think if they implement that, they'll get to the next level, or it'll open up so much more flow on effect. But I guess people don't really see that. And I see that with both of you, of like, we're trying to put each other on and connect each other up and sort of egg each other on. And we're not the only people that I know like that. Like a lot of people that are either making significant amounts of money or reaching a lot of people, there's a very co-creative attitude. And I also noticed the higher we get, the more that drops in. Because maybe me in 2012, when I was really first trying, I was like, fuck everyone, I've got to do my thing. And then at each new layer of kind of getting my ass handed to me by businesses, like, oh, like he's awesome, she's amazing. And I guess the less fear in my body as well of like, oh, these aren't my competitors. These are the other people of a rare breed that are similar that I want to play with. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And maybe like this triggered thing, you know, like one, you know, I could be completely tripping and projecting that like we each have this kind of effect, but I don't think so. So I just want to throw that into the mix.
I think we know so.
I think we know. So we have some evidence, you know?
I think we've had some pretty valid feedback.
Yeah, we've had some valid feedback. And without getting into too much self-reflection of, you know, why do you think you're a bad person potentially? You know, like it's not really where I want. I'm just curious of why do you think that is? Like what's happening there?
Yeah, I can definitely answer this one. I've got a strong... I'd actually... What are your human design profiles, just out of curiosity?
Generator. All closed centers apart from one.
Okay. So I'm a 5-1. Just, I don't know. Do you know what your...
Investigator Martyr, 3-1 or 4-1 or 7-8 or 58-42. I don't know, you know.
Okay. Anyway. Yeah. I just love exploring the different like blueprints of and how they correlate with
energetically we're all very different is what I know in our makeup.
Definitely. But I think something that I see that's in common with all of us is that we don't get so stuck in story. And I think for anyone that is in story, that's quite triggering.
Well, you're discounting their reality with everything you do in a way, right? Like, it's like, that's really important. I'm like, it's kind of bullshit. If you want to move through it, you could move through it now.
That might be why you're triggering them, babe.
That's what I'm saying inside my head. I'm not knocking on people's door. This is the thing, right? You know, I was very evangelistic once and very in people's faces, but my perception of myself is I've softened and integrated it a lot. But I know there's still ripples out there in the world, but I think you're right about the story piece, Sig. Like, can you say more on that?
Yeah, I'm going to say more to it. Definitely. I'm not just dropping that, leaving it there, but like I was talking about this morning. I'm just totally in devotion and committed to my creative channel. And I spend a lot of time alone in that, and I'm so content in that. Like I'm just sitting there like creating, and I'm not often like I don't consume. Like I'm not a consumer at all. I'm just totally in my creator zone, and I don't actually have a huge level of awareness of what everyone else is doing. Like I'm not someone to sit on the computer and look up people's profiles and be like, what's that person doing? What's that person doing? Like I actually don't compare at all. And I think I'm just sitting there and pulling through my ideas and launching. And the minute something comes through for me, I launch it. It's like immediate because it holds me accountable to actually showing up for it. And I think that it almost creates a bit of a force field, I've noticed. Like, there's also like there's this level of like there's this level of me of like containment and like impenetrability. Is that a word? Impenetrability. Like I'm quite impenetrable, and for anyone that needs me, that actually creates a huge trigger, right? Because I'm actually just in doing my own thing. And so I noticed that anyone that is not doing their own thing, that's entirely triggering for.
Well, I also think people that are doing their own thing, but they're hitting a lot of roadblocks, or they're, you know, they're having a very on and off, horribly traumatic journey for whatever reason. You know, I am, but then I wasn't. But then it's also frustrating when it's like that person seems like they're just doing it, like, and then there's all these bits that because they're ruthless or because they're don't care, or, you know, you have to make some kind of reason about why that person is, you know, if you're running in a running race and the other person's faster than you either have to go, oh, well, I'm not as fit as him, or you know, my legs are too weak or whatever, or you have to go, yeah, because he's on fucking steroids, you know, or like whatever. That's what I noticed with that, you know.
Yeah, that's all I have to say. I don't think I have anything more to build on that right now.
Why do you trigger people, Victoria? Why do you think, or why do you, or you or us, or any of us?
Well, us because we're Satan's whores, but but me individually, like, I mean, I don't actually I get more of the like intimidation. Like, I intimidate people, and I think it's really the sexuality piece. A lot of the time I think people have ideas about how I be, and, you know, who are my lovers. This is like, you know, there's used to be this joke I used to go to the gym, and like Kezia would interview our personal trainer and be like, so how many lovers does Victoria really have? You know, it's just like this kind of like joke of like what people really want to know. And I don't often, you know, give people the straight up facts, because I just, you know, I like to keep my private life private. So that's kind of one piece of why I think I trigger people in that way. And what often happens though is like when people get close to me, they're like, oh, you're actually just like a little girl, you know, like I'm like, you know, you're not actually like this big powerful scary lady, you're actually just like really sweet, and like like I'm quite childlike most of the time. So it's very like it's quite a, you know, paradoxical nature that I'm playing with, because I am just like this little kid, but, you know, on the internet I appear as like this boss lady who's doing all this stuff all the time. You know, and I wear a suit and I'll be a certain way. It's just like, it just triggers a lot of things. But really, I'm just like, I'm quite introverted and I'm quite, you know, shy. So, you know, it just has, playing with that paradoxical nature can be quite confronting for people sometimes.
Yeah, I was saying yesterday, I was in a call telling people how I like fuck with people in session spaces, like when I'm in trainings, because I'll hold this certain archetype for a period of time, and everyone develops an identity around who they think I am, and then I flip it. And then I'll like fart, or I'll do something super immature, or like be a child, and everyone's like, whoa, like she's that?
Thought she was the teacher.
What she's this. And I intentionally do it to make sure that people cannot hold certain projections of me. So I like flip different like archetypes into my teaching sessions so that people cannot like it invalidates their projections. Like if I'm feeling a projection being thrown at me in a space, I'll like, okay, I know exactly what I need to do to invalidate that. And so like people will like never know what to expect when they're in a space with me, because sometimes I'll be like hold this really stern point, be really direct. Other times I'll just be an absolute child. And that's something I've learned to do.
Starting to unpack the projections piece at probably like the third or fourth spiral practitioner training in Byron, and they become more magical. You know, we're sitting around on cushions in sort of a satsang format and whatever. And people came in, and it was due to start, and I was just eating a banana, and then I started to clock on that like it was someone was getting triggered that I was eating a banana. So I just continued eating the banana, and then there's this kind of ripple of this thing started to happen around like, and I was like, I mean, it couldn't be just because I'm eating a banana. And someone was like, what are you doing with that banana? And it became this like, he's doing a mind trick on us. And I was just like, well, I wasn't. But since I suddenly picked up on that you were making it one, I became okay to sit inside of that story. So then this loop started, and like 3 or 4 people all started getting this thing. And then they start clearing because they've been learning clearing. And I'm just like, I mean, is that just because I ate a banana? And it's like, no, it's because you ate a banana and you're this person sitting on that particular chair, you know, like that really ramps it up of like, that's the teacher spot, or I'm holding the
Totally.
magician archetype. So like the magician is eating a banana. What sorcery is this? You know, like he's fucking with us. Is this NLP? And I'm just like, you know, I didn't have much lunch, so I just kind of ate a banana. And then that, it became a whole process, and we had to clear the banana, and it was just like, we could teach mirror theory of what does it mean to you. It's like, to me it's rebel, to me it's disrespect, to me it's just chaos. It's chaos in here. And I'm just like, a circus clown and some monkeys just ran through, a guy ate a banana. But anyway, projections were revealed.
You know, this is actually something that I have noticed myself doing like over the last few years. Is like when I have somebody in the room with me, and I'm like, oh, I just start working with a coach, or I start working with a mentor or something, I'll just start talking about like debauchery and orgies, just to like see where it lands in their nervous system. You know, like, I'm like, okay, how, like, where can we stretch these people to? What conversation are people available for? You know, like, I don't actually talk about debauchery and orgies very much, but I just want to know how far we can, where we can feel that limit inside of their body. And if they can, like, you know, sit with that part, I'm like, okay, cool, we can really open this up, and I don't have to like manage what I'm going to talk about or like hold certain things back. And that's like a really free space for me to exist in. But it is like, because of the projections that I wear working in sexuality, it's like I just want to make enough space for myself to like really feel free to be in the fullness of who I am without having to worry whether it's going to jar someone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I really got a nice image, or I guess technique, from Ohad, one of the faculty from ISTA, who has this idea of like, oh, you can hold people's projections. You know, you don't have to like take them on like into your body, and you don't have to go like, fuck you, don't project on me. But I see you're projecting, and I'm just going to set it here on this little shelf, and I'll keep it for you until which point you're ready to realize you're projecting and reclaim it. And I was like, oh, that's nice, because it's not. Because there was a point where I was like, fuck this, people are just projecting all this stuff on me. And then I kind of go back through my face. I'm like, well, you're playing this character, you know, it's creating the result that it would create. What did you expect? So it doesn't make sense to get upset, but actually I kind of really want people to like me, actually. Like, I would much prefer to be liked than venomously disliked. But then there's also a part that's like, well, I can work with either one. But once I got this, like, oh, like this person can't, like, I know both of you guys privately, which has helped me not have those projections, which I easily could if I just had your Instagram, you know, because then it's just this very two-dimensional, these words, this image, and whatever stories my mind is apt to create, you know, and it's like, she's this, she's that. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed that idea of like, you know, not trying to stop the projections, but I'm just going to set it here on this little shelf, and you know, people are allowed to project. Like, it's like if you write a story, people are allowed to misunderstand or fill in their own meanings of, yes, because the heroine had obviously been abused. And it's like, that wasn't in the story. It's like, well, they get to do that once it's out there in the world.
Do you know what I think as well, just to summarize, like, why is it that us three trigger certain people? If you think, right, you're on your Facebook feed and you've got all three of us on your Facebook feed, anytime that you are having something come up with your sexuality, you're probably going to think about me, and it's going to come up into your world because I sit there and talk about it every day. Anything that's coming up for you around business, you're going to think about Sigourney, because that's what's coming up in your feed every day around business. Anything that comes up around media, around like social media especially, is you're going to think of Dane, because that's like what we're all talking about every day. So it's just like, we're just becoming like a mirror for that particular, like, you know, thing inside of the world. And so anytime, you know, even like people used to say to it about, you know, veganism, when you think of veganism, you think about that person, and it's like just certain people start to connect to different things in the world. And I think it's a good thing and a bad thing, you know. It's like, it's a bad thing because whenever that's painful for you, you're going to think of that person, but also, you know, it's part of the purpose, you know, to draw the attention to these particular concepts and how we want them to be changed in the world. And I think that's also what you guys are saying as well, like, how do we get ourselves, what I'm hearing in all three of us is that we wanted to be actually moved off of the pedestal of those particular ideas. And I think what we're all talking about, that childlike nature that we all seem to hold, is like us just going, you know, like, also this is just a big joke and you don't have to do, you know, you don't have to be anything. It's all just like a game that we're playing with. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, there's also this thing of like, you do hold a certain identity on social media. you know, that are people attached to. Like my inner child and little girl was just like absolutely shafted when it comes to showing up on social media. Like that, just that's not apparent that that's even there, and so it can be quite triggering. And I actually reserve that to my intimate relationships and my friendships and that whatnot, because I'm actually trying to craft a certain identity for my business, you know, and holding a certain identity so that people start to associate, oh, like if I need this, I go to this person because they're holding that piece. I don't want to be like, yes, no, you know, because then it's like quite confusing. So I am actually holding a pretty strong position, and it means I'm also negating certain parts, and so that can also be quite triggering.
You didn't get the 2014 social media memo about vulnerable shares?
Are we going there?
No, we don't have to go there.
Just stir in the pot a little bit.
You know, I would actually never. This could be quite triggering to people, and I'm totally okay with doing that. But I personally, I don't see practitioners that are showing up, you know, like posting shit with them bawling their eyes out and posting their deep vulnerabilities or whatever it is on social media. Because I'm like, I want to know someone can hold me and has it. Like if I'm seeing someone consistently show up in their vulnerability, I'm like, where's your fucking masculine? Like, I don't want to receive off you.
That's really interesting.
To be completely honest.
I'm just thinking it would be really funny if like psychiatrists and like doctors did that on like their website, you know, which, you know, to be clear, I can really see the value in that, and I will do that. And also when I see men do it, it's really valuable because it breaks a lot down. But I can see when it can work with authenticity and really be in line. But I also see like a lot of vulnerability kind of porn because it's almost like
I'm talking about the vulnerable porn.
Yeah, because we know it's going to get. It's like we've become these little creatures that are we're like have almost like engagement receptors, you know, and so it's almost like, ooh. If I share this, and it might not be consciously like that, but it might be like, I'm just bearing myself, and I see that on the more artist level, or, you know, that thing, like Amanda Palmer, for example, I kind of wouldn't be like, oh, she's just pimping her vulnerability to get attention. You know, it's like, oh, this person just gives no fucks or gives a lot of fucks, but is very fearless in revealing that part. And, you know, as an artist, that doesn't make me question her authenticity as an artist, you know, but it is interesting when you lean towards like, oh, a business coach, like, but then sometimes I've done that in my groups, and it's for people to go like, oh, like Dane has days where he's broken. I'm like, yeah, I'm fucked. However, we did do 35 grand in cash this week. I want to just throw in like, and I'm sitting in the bath crying right now, but I haven't abandoned the mission, you know. I just did it yesterday, or between brokenheartedness, or because I'm committed to this thing. But I don't want them to think there's just some implacable like warrior energy that no matter what forges forwards. It's like, if I'm depressed, I'll sleep in, or I'll, you know, stay up until 3 a.m. watching Netflix, or whatever the emotional body wants to a degree, I'll give it. And then at a certain point, I'll come back into like, however, the mission, the alignment must happen, and I have to dance with it because I'm super emotional, or not super emotionalized, but I'm deeply feeling would be more accurate. So I think it can be healthy, but yeah, it's a strange social media world.
I think those people have like created an identity around that. I'm like, what's your actual message? Like, what are you actually selling? You know, it's like, what are you good at? Like, that's become who they are, and that's like become their like identity. And I'm like, so I think there's a difference in what I think it's beautiful when someone can share vulnerably, but I think it's just being kind of raped and pillaged a little bit.
Yeah.
It's just an algorithm, basically. Like, I'm actually a little bit tired of it. Like, the vulnerability algorithm, it's like you know, and I think like the business people are actually using it now. Like, people that are actually creating it, it's actually part of your algorithm you have to show up and bring the vulnerability for. It's like, otherwise you're just going to get put to the bottom of the pile. It's funny.
So what about witchcraft?
Oh, we're going there.
Yeah. Let's get into, you know, a bit of that.
I just found out my name means witch, actually. So
No way. That's cool.
yeah. So it means the conqueror in French. I can't remember what it mean, what language it was, witch, but in Italian it's hand job too. So it's good.
So can we have a moment then? So Sigourney means conqueror and Victoria means victorious. So I think we're pretty good here.
Mm. Dane is like a big kind of dog, so like, you know, it's like What do you guys think about this kind of trend that now everything is like dark all of a sudden? You know?
Is it? Okay.
Oh, you haven't noticed? Well, not on the Gold Coast. Everyone is still like white light, conscious breath work and stuff, you know. But what I'm seeing in the ethers of the spiritual bit, there's a lot of like, I'm a dark worker now. It's like, you just do Reiki with a hat on. But anyway, you know, like, but also genuinely, you know, through. Did you like that? I'm so dark.
Can we get a little card of that? You know, like a little Instagram tile.
Yeah,
Just do Reiki with
a headliner, yeah.
You're not dark. You just do Reiki with a hat on. It's funny.
I mean,
like, I want to complain about a trend that I'm also perpetuating. I want to just throw out that I have the self-awareness around that. Like, you know, like people who shift their branding all dark and people are like, what do you mean? Like you did 18 months ago? It's like, no, I'm just, that's just my truth. But other people, you know, it's like they're jumping on this bandwagon or something. What's happening? So you're not even seeing that in your world, Victoria. I guess you're maybe facing a different direction, you know?
Yeah.
Definitely noticed it.
You've noticed it. You do dark branding. It's kind of one of your things.
I mean,
right?
it's. I mean, I have the dark branding agency. It's definitely my thing. So, I mean,
you mean the thing that I'm manufacturing into the world right now?
Are we talking about me right now?
But no, I'm not holding any one person responsible. Actually, I'm just noticing there's a flavor coming in that is acceptable that I don't think would have been acceptable 3 years ago. I don't think, you know.
Well, I mean, there's one thing if we look at the context of where we are planetarily in our evolution, we're at the core point of Kali Yuga, which is the darkest age in history. Like, we'll never see a darker age in history again. You know, this 25,000 year period, and we're at the center point of it. And so, like, you know, like we're actually like the deepest collective shadows coming up at the moment around power and control and sexuality, and it's all emerging. And so we actually are at the core of the darkest point in history. And so I think people's darkness is naturally being illuminated and whatnot. So there is that. And
I like it. It's time. It's witching time. So it's not just a fake branding thing. It's witch time. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, what do I want to share on this? I don't know if I do want to share on this, actually. I feel like you asked the question. I feel like you have stuff to share on it, Dane.
Well, I think that if we want to use the words light and dark, I'm just going to define them because I know, you know, if someone's coming from a Christian framework, even if they're not Christian, they'll be like, what the hell is he going on about? But particularly the kind of like shamanic Tantra framework that has come out of places like Ista and Haydn Temple and stuff has really landed well for me around looking at, you know, the light as consciousness, upper realms, less dense, and the dark as more, you know, lower chakras, density, sex, power, money, survival stuff. And I think spirituality has lived in the light split for quite a while. And we can also look at what's happening with race right now. We can look at gender, like the feminine was dark, black people are dark, therefore they are evil if you're coming from the colonial conditioning of, the Brits, the Dutch, the whoever, so there's this white, black, masc, femme, all these splits, all these dichotomies, matter, spirit and matter. Spirit is pure, matter is dirty. So I think there is a yearning on a level of those things to come together, like why am we having this? And like, who are the spiritual people who get shit done in the real world? My desire is to connect with people in the world that are getting shit done, that rock in the material, and connect them to their higher purpose. And also the other side is, and people that are connected to this profound spirituality, I want to help them land it on planet Earth, particularly that side. I have a deep, sometimes it seems like I'm being mean to spiritual people, but actually I have a deep desire to help everyone that is sensitive, that is aware, that is plugged into something bigger than themselves. I want to help them land it on the ground, so sometimes I feel like I sound like I'm picking on them, but it's more of a frustration of like, I want more allies who can hold the light and dark and the masculine and feminine all together and be like a full person, like a soul that's landed. That's how I'm reading it, is like, souls that are in body. So people that have big mission, that inhabit their body, feel their feelings, but can get shit done and create and lead. It's my personal story of what is happening right now and what I want to happen. But I do think on some greater social level, I mean, like, when I look at like hashtag witches of Instagram and there's 2.8 million posts, I'm like, imagine calling yourself publicly a witch in 1950. That would not go down so well in most of the world. Like, hi everybody, I'm a witch. It'd be like, like that shit's held for so long. And now there's something changing where, nature worship, embodiment, sticking things in your butt and talking about it in a business forum, sexuality, at least in the circles that I'm fascinated by, I think it's coming home. I think there's more and more people who are like, well, like how many fucking tantrikas and dakinis do I know? Like literally thousands. Like that. One part of me can be cynical and go, everyone can't be that. And then another part is like, actually, probably need an army of about a couple of million of those people at least to have an impact on 8 billion people. We probably need more, so, which is good for your industry, Victoria, but so I guess I see it on a brand level. I can be super cynical of like, another person just went dark with their imagery, and I also don't think a lot of people deeply embody the power element. I think they're just trying to be cool. It's like, nerdy kids turning goth and being like, you don't hang out in the graveyard, But that personality cynicism aside, I guess there's a more substantial thing wanting to come in around spirituality that has teeth, that has actually some balls and pussy and asshole and feet and can do stuff on earth, the lower half, like even our language, that like cocks and pussies and assholes are all like dirty words. Like, you're an asshole, you're a dick, it's like, what the heck? It's just like almost like the heaviness has settled in those realms. So our whole referencing system is like, lower is worse, darker is worse, down is bad, up is good. It's like this whole framework. Like, this is quite a rant, but thanks for flipping it back to me. Sometimes I think, like, imagine if we were like eyeless slugs with no bones and we still had evolved an entire civilization. All of our language would be different. There would be no visual metaphors. There'd be nothing. Integrity would not be a measure of anything. It'd be more like fluidity or sliminess, or like, because nothing has a spine. So we wouldn't be like, he's a stand-up guy. We'd be like, he's a slithery guy, and that'd be like a really good thing. So our whole fucking framework is based on light, gravity, and the dogma of the people who went before us. And so that's, everything means stuff based on the cultural baggage of everything else. And I think the people that are prepared to go and claim some of the shadowy bits and integrate it, there's this huge freeing up of love and power and life force. And my optimistic read is that's what's trying to happen. Versus like everyone wants to be a pointy hat and be a witch, you know, like whatever.
Yeah. Do you guys worry that with like the Dark Empire and the Dark Wizard that people are making it light and dark? Because I actually don't feel like people really understand, you know, what I understand when you share about dark is like, we're talking about dark matter, like we're being in the body. And that's what I hear when I see your branding, but I don't know if that's what the rest of the social media would get.
Yeah. There's a total misperception of what darkness is as well. It's like darkness for me is the space I channel from. It's like I drop into the core of the earth, and that's where, and actually it's not even that dark down there. Sometimes I'm sitting, there's a lot of light. That's where the first seeds of consciousness arise from. And, you know, there's actually a lot of color, and you'll see my branding, there's a lot of color, but it's like the place in which I'm sitting and doing my work from, which is in a really still space, because I've ascended my consciousness down into the core of the earth, and that's where I'm like bringing up, that's where it's like fertile, it's like the earth, right? It's like it's where creative ideas actually like come from and bloom from. And so I'm actually sitting in that space and bringing through my creations, and that's where I can actually, where I can channel as well. And so there's just like this idea of like, what is the dark? It's got nothing to do with being evil or like, you know, and that can be, you know, it's like, you know, if we're looking at the dark goddess who like absolutely just feels absolutely everything, and like from rage to like, you know, that can appear to be evil in the eyes of some people that are totally not okay with feeling. But when I'm referencing like for the Dark Empire, for example, it's like that space of like, you know, call it what you want, the void or 0 point of consciousness. It's like that space of entire stillness where it is like, it's like dark. It's like, and that's where also the light comes from and where it originates from. So that's like what I'm referring to. But I think there's a lot of people that don't actually have that connection to
not at all. No.
The truth of what the dark is, and that are just using it because it's a bit of a, again, like it's another trend. And I think you can tell the difference. Well, I think someone that's connected to and has this experience of true dark can feel that. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, there's a couple of types of dark even, you know, there's the dualistic dark, which is to occupy, it's almost like to be the contrarian. So it's like, oh, they think the light is good, so the dark is good. I flip it, you know, it's almost like the Church of Satan. When you read their stuff, and this is like if you read the Satanic Bible, it's like, be good to each other. Like it's kind of the same as the other guy's Bible, you know, which I found very interesting. It's just centering Lucifer as a rebellious, freedom-oriented figure rather than a compassion or I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's almost like flipping the value set into like rebellion and freedom at the center. But the stuff that I read was like actually some pretty good behavior, just of a kind of a free love and anarchistic sort of version of Christianity. So I guess there's that kind of contrarian thing of flipping things, but then there's like the non-dual dark, which is kind of more a bit kind of like what Sigourney, it's almost like, you know, the thing before there was anything, you know, before there was light and dark, there was a bigger dark that everything has come from, where there is no such thing as polarity. And you know, when we go into the kind of like the three aspects model of like the personality, the soul, and the void is not dark like a bad guy dark. It's dark like the absence of sides or aspects kind of dark. And for me, the whole dark wizard thing, apart from being funny and starting from a nickname, it also kind of to me means the ability to integrate all the things. So it's like within the dark is kind of the light and the dark and the gray and the blue, you know, and it's kind of like, and also a willingness. There's also like a dropping of the fear of being misunderstood. I think there's a really potent thing there. Like, it's almost, someone told me a story once about the white knight, the red knight, and the black knight, and this journey that a knight goes through. And it's like
David Dieter's work, isn't it?
Is it from Dana? I can't remember.
Yeah.
It might be.
Yeah, it is.
And, you know, and I might even butcher it, but what I got was essentially the white knight is just trying to fix everything. You know, it's like, that's not okay. Let me rescue you. Let me like fix society, you know? The red knight is him further along, who's now getting pissed because he's realized, I cannot fix this world. You know, I can't fucking save all the whales and fix the economy, and like, it's just not. And so then it's like, fuck you, and this is wrong. And it's just kind of raging. And then the Black Knight starts to transcend the story that it's about him at all, and just is what he is, and is actually a much cleaner mirror, because he just is able to be what he is and drop the self and drop the projection. And for me, that always landed as like, ooh, that's like true power is dark. You know, it's not trying to get attention. It's not like, look at me, I'm really good. You know, oh, look, I've changed my business to indicate to everyone that I'm now an advocate for racial equality, even though I'm like a mortgage lender. It's like, are you though? Like, or did you just feel the nudge to do that because you want to be seen a certain way, versus someone who would observe what's going on in the world, make changes, and not really feel the need to advertise about it? And then we could see lots of people in the Red Knight position who are just fucking crusading around and going, how dare you? You need to change. You need to fucking change. You should do what I want you to do. And it's like, it's really noisy and quite scary if you're not stable, but it's also kind of powerless. You know, it's like, so I think there's this whole thing for me around, not running projections, not expecting the world to change on my behalf. And a lot of the dark wizard media stuff, you know, I spent hours finding all the quotes that I want, and they're all like Jungian quotes, or quotes that from quantum physics, or that anyone who understands that there's two sides to everything, and if we put them together, we transcend the way things really look. So yeah, there's a lot to it. And I doubt that 99% of the populace will be like, oh yes, dark meaning non-dual dark, you know, of course.
Maybe that's your role to educate them.
I think it just, because I've always found anything explaining about non-duality super complex and abstract, and it's like, oh, like imagine creating an account that just shares this. It will have 2 followers, and they'll both be like bald-headed white dudes who are really dull to hang out with, you know? Well, there's no juice.
I'm like,
Conceptual mostly, right? Like, but to more hold the frequency of embodied dark, and also a bit of gentle provocativeness, but with an intention not of pissing everyone off, but of kind of bringing things back to love. I think there's something's landing around that for me, definitely.
I think that's your essence.
Yeah, I feel like my pokey is getting less pokey as that integrates. It's like, oh, it's a nudge towards love, whereas it used to be like, haha, fuck you, and I'd be like, why are all these people angry at me? It's like, well, you just went and poked them all in a not that compassionate way, and now they're all upset. And it's like, well, I don't understand. Now my feelings are hurt. Now it's more like, okay, holding that everyone is allowed to be exactly as they are, and holding, you mentioned a word before we started, Sigourney, ecology. Like I recently realized that is one of my values, and one of the values in my businesses is ecology, and not just like planting trees, but just considering the oneness of everything and the flow on impact of every action and everything. And it's like, okay, so we can be polarizing, but within a greater frame of like wanting everyone to not only thrive, but not really be harmed. And so, okay, that sort of changes, you know, there's a sort of quiet injunction of like, well, don't be a cunt then, maybe as a starting rule, you know, in the bad way, not the good way.
Yeah, I think there's like a scale of like, I've also found I can still be polarizing, but it's similar. Like
gentler.
Initially it was like, fuck, this hurts. Like seeing this, I want to create change. And I just like show up in that hurt, and it's like very polarizing. And then over time it's like, oh, this is how I can actually create the most change. And it's like through my actions, and like I actually do really care, you know? And it's like, I actually, so how can I speak to that?
Yeah, I think there's this piece of even wanting to do this as well, like with video and tone of voice. It's kind of like to see that people can be provocative or wild or really kind of almost ruthlessly committed to their mission, but also be compassionate and sensitive people. And, you know, I guess my greater frame is people are good. So if someone's like steaming ahead, kicking ass, I'm not like, yeah, because they're probably a ruthless fuck who hates everyone. It's like, they're probably really nice when you know them, you know, but that might not be what their bumper sticker is saying.
So should we just make
Totally.
it bumper sticker?
It's like,
Satan's horns are really white lighters.
I'm nice, really, but it has like horns out the side, you know?
Yeah.
I think we
this
could
is like the
create a
first
bumper
time I've
sticker
ever
range.
worn white too today. Yes.
Love it.
So
Yeah,
I
and
feel
it's like partly the reason I like for myself I show up so strongly and can be so like triggering is because I fucking care so much. You know, if I didn't, I wouldn't be showing up with that. Like I wouldn't have no drive to show up.
no.
It's like, and I think people forget that as well.
Yeah, it is funny when the people are finger pointing in like spiritual or healing communities at someone who they think is ruthless or they're after the money. I'm like, do you mean that person who runs like a kind of influential micro business? It's like, if they were ruthless, wouldn't they have like a mining company or something? Like, I don't think they'd have like an embodiment practice-based business because they're a ruthless fuck who wants to make millions. It's really kind of slow compared to like, if I just wanted to be bad and just get money, there's 5,000 other paths I could have gone down and like, you know, synthesizing a healing method from several other really complicated healing methods and trying to boil that down and still explain it. And like, it's like, that's why you think I would do that? Because I want money? Like, yeah, like, I'd be a lawyer, obviously, you know? I'd be brokering deals between really bad people. That's, you know, that's how you get money real quick. Like, you're not doing that.
Totally.
On that note, sorry, I'd love to hear maybe what's next for each of you guys, just to give a sort of future facing, what's in the cauldron, Victoria Redbard? Where are you heading?
I'm like, what do I even need to share right now? Yeah, I mean, really, there's a big piece for the sexuality industry that I'm landing. We're building out the directory with to make that the work of sexuality more accessible to everyday people. Inside of that is the Enlightenment in the Bedroom project under Unified Vitality, which is like the TEDx of sexuality. So there'll be run globally events around people educating and talking about sexuality. So it's kind of again just like weaving and encouraging the people that are embodied and are in their sexual essence to be the transmission and get on the stage and actually speak the truth of this work that we're doing, because I feel like it is so misunderstood. And basically a lot of the conversation we've all just had is how misunderstood this work is. So yeah, one of my goals is to see that change. And kind of, as I said at the beginning, a lot of that is to do with, you know, getting people to understand that sexuality is not a place for escapism, or to like run away from your body or to get into as stress relief, but it's actually like a journey of coming and landing here on the planet so you can do the do, and so you can you know, be that white light that's inside of you and live it and embody it and be on the planet in that. So yeah, you know, and I just feel like this is the work for everyone, you know. So with the Institute of New Paradigm Intimacy, which is the sexuality school that I run, we've now got a one for men and one for women. And you know, it used to be around the sexuality leadership, sexuality coaching, and now it's stepped into more like sexuality leadership, because I'm, you know, what's happening is actually I'm just starting to understand how that can be a career path. You know, like I wanted to be a sexuality leader when I was like a teenager and I didn't know why, and it didn't even exist then. And now it's like we're creating all these pathways for those people to come out and speak that truth. Like the world needs to be educated on this stuff. Like imagine a world where Eros was integrated into society. You know, that's the underlying vision with Unified Vitality, the New Paradigm Intimacy, Enlightenment in the Bedroom, all of these pieces coming together. And I'm actually like building out a system so, you know, people can come along, and if they want to build out their own modality and sexuality, or they want to create an event, or they have a business, it's like they can come to me and we can, you know, bring together those resources that are needed, because it is too much for one person to make a change in this world around seeing Eros integrated into society. And I want to see people supported in that. So that's something that I'm really building out at the moment, where people can come and share their ideas and be supported by volunteers, by lawyers, by contracts, by all the back end things that are an absolute headache, that have kind of come to me, and I've been able to work my way through certain things that I want to be able to gift out to other people so they can build out their own stuff.
Love it. And what's the easiest way to follow you, keep track of you, get in touch with you?
Yeah, Instagram, Facebook, my website, victoriaredbard.com, Victoria Redbard on Instagram and Facebook. There's also the Institute of New Paradigm Intimacy and Unified Vitality. So yeah, if you are a sexuality leader and you want to be in the directory, or you want to be you know, you've got an idea that you want to bring to the world and you need more support in that, like I'd love to hear from you. And if you are, you know, up and coming in the sexuality world and you want to know how to make this into a career and do the business thing and have it feel good, then I would love to hear from you as well.
Killer. Love it. How about you, Sig? What's next?
What's next? So I guess my line of work has two main like branches. One is the embodiment work and the work around intimacy, particularly self-intimacy with Wild Grace. And then I have the business side of things, which is the work around the Dark Empire. So I've got the two companies. What's alive for me at the moment, I'm writing my second book called The Dark Empire, which is going to be releasing in December. And I've got some really, I don't really want to release the information about it yet, but something's just really landed today about something I'm going to be creating towards the end of the year, which I have to chat to you guys about.
A thing has landed.
The thing landed today. So I'm going to keep that a little bit mysterious, but it's related to my body of work with the Dark Empire, which is all about building out people's empires. And really, when I'm talking about empires, I'm not talking about like the old, you know, empires of like, you know, this domination culture and whatnot. It's really like redefining what is an empire, redefining what is a business, and doing things in a more ecological way. And when I talk about ecological, I'm talking about like basically mystic does business. Like how do we actually integrate these parts of ourselves and create a business that's really aligned and really true, that still has a profound effect, but is actually deeply anchored in the mystical realms and still has really deep spiritual meaning. So that's what I'm creating with that body of work. And basically it's like I created a massive, you know, empire in like 18 months with, you know, I have over 10 employees now, and that's like, you know, no business coach ever. And what I really want to help people do is create the same, create the level of impact that they desire to. And, you know, I'm quite deeply anchored in both the spiritual and business worlds. And so I feel like I do that quite well. And I love supporting people in that. So that's what the Dark Empire is all about. Yeah.
Love it. And best places to track you?
Soon my personal website's going to be completed in the next couple of months. So www.sigougnybelle.com, and also my website www.dark-empire.com for all things business, branding, PR, anything you can imagine that's going to help leverage your business. Hey, Pug. And then on Instagram, Sigourney Belle, the Wild Grace Movement, and Dark Empire.
Great.
Or you can just follow me, and I have all of the links for the others up.
And that's all on the World Wide Web, you say? Awesome.
Did I say World Wide Web?
No, I just was being smart ass. Like on the world, well, you can find me on the World Wide Web at www. Anyway,
well,
on
actually,
that note,
soon I'll have my own Wikipedia page. So in the next couple of months, so you'll find me there.
Great. I'm going to have my own internet soon, so you know you can find me on that.
Can we edit your Wikipedia page and put Satan's Whores as your cult?
just have a picture of like a dick
Wikipedia
with a crown
page
on it, you know? Just like. On that note, I'm going to call this to a close. I'm super grateful to do this with you guys. I'd love to do it again.
Me too. It's been fun. Love you guys.
Thank you so much for having me on. Love you.